So what do we mean when we talk about the deficit model of autism?
The deficit model is the idea there's something deficient. That's what the word is. So why is there something deficient? What are we saying? What's missing? You know, we think of Autism Speaks and their jigsaw puzzle piece, the missing piece. What's missing from an autistic person? You tell me. That's where I start. And then you realise very quickly with that kind of language that it just doesn't hold up. But a lot of people and society on the whole subscribe to the predominant neurotype model, the conforming, the majority mind. But as we've seen, as we can see throughout the ages, if you don't embrace creativity and difference and artistry and inventors, then you get a very homogenous and stagnant society. Unfortunately, what that results in is ultimately mental ill health.
What's the opposite of the deficit model of autism?
The opposite of deficit model is going to be a strengths focus approach or model, if you like. If you think you can approach any human being from a strengths focused perspective, which is what we should do really, right? So if you do that with an autistic person, you're not just addressing the inherent deficiency approach that we normally encounter. You're saying that this person's unique and has got something special to offer the world.
What support do you wish you'd had after you got your own autism diagnosis? How do you think things could have been different?
Well, my answer isn't conventional. I would have said, give me a couple of grand and let me go on an adventure of my own and find myself there.
So the kind of support that you did get, how did you find that, through the NHS?
I was offered 6 sessions with an occupational therapist, which was quite useful, and ongoing sessions in a circular support group led by a really nice psychologist guy. At the same time, I was birthing this whole idea for Autism Dialogue, so it was almost like this is a good kind of contrasting what Autism Dialogue can be, because it was a really good talking circle workshop of autistic people, but it was in the autism service, and even though the facilitator was a good guy, he was still a psychologist, non-autistic psychologist. So there were very subtle kind of ripples of discontent among the individuals in that group, but I enjoyed it because it gave me some focus and some balance and some socializing with other autistic people.
What kind of support did you get after that? How did you manage?
I was surprised after a couple of years I was still allowed to keep going. But anyway, my interest kind of waned, and it wasn't the kind of talking circle that I wanted. And that's when the idea for Autism Dialogues was starting to really come to fruition. I know that I needed to learn about myself and learn about this thing called autism that somebody had stamped me with. And I was quite grateful for that stamp in a way, because it gave me something to do, more than having an explanation for why I was a bit weird. So I went to university, I got on the postgrad, well, it was the MA Autism. I left after the first year because I was starting to get a bit triggered by stories and I'd learned enough about autism, so left with a postgrad certificate, and I was also starting the Autism Dialogue circles myself in the community, with the help of the other University of Sheffield, Liz Milne and Liz Friend from the Autistic Society, and some autistic people, brought them together, and in the town centre, literally hiring rooms, and got on with the work of dialogue learning together, generating new knowledge together. And then I also went and got a coaching postgrad certificate as well, which gave me a more robust foundation into supporting people. And so the combination of those two certificates was powerful for me.
What is coaching?
Coaching comes from the Hungarian word koch, coach. You can imagine a horse and carriage, and who goes in the horse and carriage? Somebody that's being supported along their way, somebody that's been taken somewhere in service of the driver. But coaching's a lot more than just taking someone somewhere. It started out in education. The real traditional idea that a professor will encourage and be with that student along their learning journey. So coaching today has got a lot of different interpretations, but to me, coaching is about being with someone, holding their hand along on their journey for a bit, to work with them on identifying the obstacles to where they want to be. That's simply coaching in a nutshell.
So can you just explain to people who don't already know, basically, what is Autism Dialogue, this new approach that you came up with after your diagnosis?
Let's look at the meaning of those two words. Autism is they're both Greek words, by the way. Autos is the self. Dialogue is two words. As a matter of fact, dia meaning through or between, and log from legin or logos, through the word. So basically it's what I've been doing all my life, through searching for meaning through words of the definition of the self. I've been asking myself since I was a youth, why am I here? And that's almost like my special interest. Like I wanted to know why I'm here and communicate that question to as many people as possible. And as my life's gone on, I realised that not many people actually ask that question, let alone have any answers for it. So Autism Dialogue, when those two things came together in my head, it was like, this is it. This is what I can do in the West, in a Western country, in Britain today. We can sit down and we can have this basically existential, mystical kind of conversations that are not existential or mystical in any way, except for the subject. And for me, that it has been very, very powerful, bringing people together in a safe framework, using established dialogue models, safe and confidential, bounded and ethical, to generate an inquiry in a group, in a circle of autistic and non-autistic people, to really try and understand what's really going on in this setting, in a microcosm of our society, which is in effect autistic and non-autistic people. And then lo and behold, we discovered that actually autistic people really like that, because it puts them on an equal footing with non-autistic people, which is, first of all, something that, let's face it, they don't get a lot of. So we're raising their voices into the circle so non-autistic people can listen. Non-autistic people, on the other hand, can learn, and they're empowered by learning. So it's kind of a win-win situation. And that's what's fabulous about it.
Just tell us about stimming.
Stimming is short for self-stimulatory exercise or movements, and it's a new kind of cultural term. autistic people need to move. It's very, very common in autistic kids, especially. And there's a book called Loud Hands, which is a fabulous account of accounts from autistic people. But I just love that title because it's Loud Hands. There's an anecdote behind that about silent hand. Keep your hands. Sit on your hands. In school, kids who can't stop fidgeting. See, I nearly used the word there, which is derogatory. Unfortunately, regarded as a symptom, there being something wrong. Well, actually, self-stimulatory is also regulatory, and what's happening, as far as I understand, is there's some kind of, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, there's some kind of proprioceptive regulation going on, or calibration. The body, the sensors, they need calibrating. So, for example, when I do this, I love hearing that, and there's something about my connection to that sound which means that I'm in control. And it is almost involuntary, but it means I'm in control of that sound, and my body feels like it's regaining power and autonomy when sounds in my environment have been too much and too out of control, perhaps, and that's usually when it happens. There's loads and loads, there's endless amounts of stimming. It's been argued that everybody stims, like as in doodling, but I'm not sure that's what stimming in this sense really means. A lot of the time it is involuntary, but a lot of the time it's voluntary, like I say, and enjoying the light flickering through my fingers is one. I can feel it in my nervous system. I don't know what else to say. It's related to tics and Tourette's, which are also, well, I suppose they're more involuntary nervous spasms, but there's something being adjusted in the nervous system.